Hey friends, welcome back to art class. For today's art lesson, you are going to need your pumpkin pie drawing from last week. You are going to need a pencil and you are going to need coloring supplies. Now, colored pencils are going to be the best option for you, but if you do not have colored pencils, then crayons will work. Markers will not work for this assignment. Now, if markers are the only thing that you have, then instead of using coloring supplies, you can just use a regular pencil, and you will see how that can work once we get started here. So before we get started on the coloring part, I just wanted to go over quickly what we were learning about last time. We started to learn about the element of art, form. Now, form means anything that is three-dimensional. So when it comes to coloring something that has form, we have to think about our light source. Now, usually a light is shining on the object, and that changes how we add color to it. So I want to give a quick demonstration. I found this form in my classroom, so I'm going to use this, and I'm going to shine a light on it so that we can take note of a few things. When we have a light source, so my light source is coming from over here and pointing this way onto my form. When we have a light source, where it's shining is the brightest spot. So my brightest spot is right here next to my light source. As I get farther away from my light source, it gets darker. So this side of my form is dark because it's far away from my light source. This side of my form is bright because it's close to my light source. So we are going to color this like we have a light source coming from up here, shining down on our pie, which means that this is going to be lighter of our pie, and this part will be darker. So I think the first thing we're going to do, you can either grab a black colored pencil or just a regular pencil. The other thing that happens when we have a light source is a shadow. Anything that has a form will also cast a shadow when we have a light source. So if my light source is coming this way, my pie is going to be creating a shadow right here. So what I'm going to do is use my black colored pencil to create a shadow. Now, in order to create a realistic shadow, I'm going to shade it darker where it's closer to my pie, and then as it gets away from my pie, it's going to get lighter. So I'm going to push hard on my pencil right here, and then as I bring it out, I'm going to continue to put less pressure on my pencil and go lighter, lighter, lighter until I've got my shadow. I'm going to do this all the way along the bottom of my pie to show that my light source is shining onto the pie. Now, we're gonna assume that our plate is white, so we don't need to add any color to that. It's just casting a black shadow onto our pie. Now I only put my shadow at the bottom because this is the side of my pie. The side of my pie would not cast a shadow to this side because my light source is coming from this way and my shadow only stays at the bottom. This helps me to create the look that this pie has form. The next thing I'm going to do is take a brown colored pencil to color the crust. Now if my light source is shining from up here, this part of my pie is going to be dark because it's kind of far away from my light source. This part up here of the crust might be a little bit lighter just because it's towards the top of my pie. So I'm going to use my brown colored pencil. I will color a little bit darker towards the bottom. And then at the top, I might do it just a little bit lighter. Changing how we shade our colors, so doing some light and some dark, helps add to the form we are creating. When you do everything the exact same shade, that really flattens it out and does not make our drawings look like they have form. I'm going to run and turn my classroom lights on really quick. I think this will help us to see. Oh, there it is. All right, so the next part of my pie is going to be the pumpkin part, and I'm gonna do that part orange. Now I want to separate the top from the side, so what I'm going to do is color the inside filling just with orange, but then I will add some brown and orange on top to make that part look a little bit darker so that it stands out. So same thing here, I've got this whole space and the top of it here is closer to my light source, so that'll be a little bit lighter. The bottom is farther away from my light source, so I will make that part a little bit darker. So if you have crayons, you can kind of do this same thing. You can change the pressure on your crayon so that it comes off lighter and darker. If you only have markers, what you can do is use a plain pencil and just make this into a black and white drawing. So it won't have any color, but you will be able to still create form. When you're coloring this, take your time so that it looks nice and neat. I'm just trying to go fast so that you don't have to watch me color forever. But you should be able to see that I'm adding different shades of my orange. Now the way that I get different shades is by how much pressure I put on my pencil. Where it's darker, I'm putting a lot of pressure on my pencil, and where it's lighter, I'm barely pushing down at all. You'll see that if my light source, if my light is shining like this, it's making this part of my pie lighter, and then the parts farther away, it's darker. All right, so now for the top of my pie. This part of my pie right here is probably closest to my light source if it's coming right there, which means that that's going to be the lightest part. Anything further away is going to be a little bit darker. Now, like I said before, I want to separate this part of my pie from the middle. So I'm going to add just a little bit of brown colored pencil on top of it, just to give it a different color. I'm still keeping it light next to my light source. Awesome. Now, anything that has form is going to cast a shadow. So our pie casted a shadow, but we're forgetting about one thing. The whipped cream here has form, right, because it's three-dimensional, so it might cast a little tiny shadow onto our pumpkin pie. So I'm going to stick with my brown colored pencil here, and if my light's shining this way, my shadow's going to be going that way too. So I'm going to start under my whipped cream and just make a little shadow onto my pumpkin pie, just to show that the whipped cream has form. Awesome, we are pretty close to being done with our pie here. The last thing that we need to do is the wall in the background and then the table. So if our plate has form as well, that means that our plate is going to cast a shadow too. So I'm just going to use my black colored pencil again, and I am going to come in the same spot on the left side, like where my pie casted a shadow, and I am going to do a shadow under the plate. Now I'm going to start really dark, and then I'm going to shade it out to be a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to try to blend them together by changing the pressure of my pencil so that my plate has a shadow too. Now the last thing you're going to do is use some colors. You can pick any colors that you want to color the wall in the background and then the table at the bottom. I will finish coloring that and then post a picture of my finished product to Schoology so that you can see. And then when you are all done coloring your pie, I want you to take a picture and upload it to Schoology so that I can see. Hopefully you were able to create some form in your pumpkin pie so that it looks realistic, three-dimensional, and super delicious. All right, friends, have an awesome week, and I will see you for art next time. This is our last time working on this, so you do not have to hang on to it for next week's art lesson. I will see you next time.